Following the restoration of the monarchy, the new King Charles II decided to punish those men who were responsible for the execution of his father Charles I. Many of these men had already died in the 12 years following the king's execution, and one of these was Henry Ireton, the son-in-law of Oliver Cromwell and Parliamentarian general. But this did not stop Charles II, and Ireton's body was dug up and was then hanged in front of a huge crowd, his decaying remains displayed on the huge gallows before it was then beheaded. But what is the story behind the brutal posthumous execution of Henry Ireton? To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. When the English Civil War broke out across the country, following Parliament rising up against the King, Henry Ireton joined the Parliamentarian forces, and he fought at the Battle of Edge Hill, and he was later made the Deputy Governor of the Isle of Ely by Cromwell. He was a skilled soldier, and on the night before the Battle of Naseby, in June 1645, he surprised the Royalist army and captured a number of soldiers. Following this, he was then appointed to command the left wing of Cromwell's soldiers in the battle, and this wing was broken by Prince Rupert, and Ireton was wounded and then taken prisoner. But Cromwell charged and freed the prisoners, and then routed the Royalist forces. Ireton continued to fight on and took part in many different battles, and he then married Cromwell's oldest daughter, Bridget. He was a man who opposed extremist views, and he wanted to continue to have a constitution of the King, Lords and House of Commons. He argued for negotiations with regards to this, but then he got frustrated and fed up with King Charles I. The King had managed to flee and escape to the Isle of Wight, and following this he then began to become convinced that the King needed dealing with. Ireton continued the fight during the Second Civil War campaigns, and he then called for Charles I to be brought to trial. He wrote the army's statement about this, representing it, and he was an active member in the decision to purge Parliament, and he sat on the King's trial and was one of the men who signed the death warrant of King Charles I. Following the King's execution, Ireton went alongside Cromwell on campaigns in Ireland. He arrived in Dublin 2 days after Cromwell, and he was appointed Major General following the conquest of the south of Ireland. When Cromwell returned to England, Ireton was in command of the new model army in Ireland, and he became known for much savagery and brutality towards the Irish people. He besieged towns and cities and caused a famine, and adopted a scorched earth policy which made things worse. After he captured Limerick, he had the officials in the city who were defending it hanged in public, and he ordered many more executions. But around November 1651, Henry Ireton actually became ill with the plague. This was ravaging the town, then he died from this on the 26th of November. It was said his death greatly upset Cromwell, and Ireton was considered a big loss for the Parliamentarians. But some believed his death was divine intervention and payback for the executions he had performed, and in particular the execution of Bishop O'Brien, who said before he was hanged that Ireton must answer to God for the murders. It was stated that Ireton's final words were allegedly, "Blood, blood, I must have more blood." His body was taken back to London, and he had a large funeral with many prominent parliamentarians present, and he then was interred inside of Westminster Abbey. But as mentioned earlier, when the monarchy was restored and Charles II, the son of the executed king, was invited onto the throne, the new king sought to punish those men who were instrumental in his father's death and Parliament's cause during the English Civil War. He launched a campaign against these regicides, and those who were still alive were rounded up and were then punished by the king. Many were executed because they signed the king's death warrant, and many more managed to flee England when the king came onto the throne, as they were part of the previous king's killings. However, for Oliver Cromwell and Henry Ireton, who were considered leading lights in the Parliamentarian cause, and were considered some of the leading figures behind the king's execution, they were sought after. But the pair had both died, and they were both lying at rest inside of Westminster Abbey. Charles II decided to order the exhumation of their bodies, which was incredibly shocking. So Henry Ireton's decaying corpse was dug up from where it was resting, then it was taken on a final journey along with Cromwell and John Bradshaw's remains. In retribution for signing Charles I's death warrant, the three were then paraded throughout the streets of London before they were taken from the Abbey to Tyburn. Ireton's body was taken out of the coffin and was dragged through London on a sledge behind horses in front of a rather shocking crowd. His remains must have been decaying, and this would have been a rather brutal sight to have seen. His body was taken to Tyburn before it was hanged in chains on a gallows in front of a large crowd. Around 4 o'clock in the afternoon it was then taken down, and then was hacked at by an axeman and executioner, who took his head off, which must have been a difficult job to do. It took the executioner 8 blows of the axe to take Cromwell's decaying head off, and Ireton had been buried in the ground for 10 years at this time. His head was hacked off, and it's believed it was displayed for at least 24 years at Westminster to send a clear message to the people of London. Henry Ireton was a brutal military commander who committed scores of war crimes inside of Ireland and other lands. He was a man who did sign the death warrant of the king, and initially was worried and apprehensive about the execution of the king. But he was a man who eventually was posthumously executed, and his dead body was paraded throughout the streets of London before an executioner took his head off. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.